Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Inside Equine Minds, where I, Caitlin Hendry, meet with various horse professionals, trainers, riders, grooms, to dive deep inside the minds of the most successful horses in various disciplines. I'll take you behind the scenes from the horse's perspective to learn about how these horses are trained and managed in a way that strengthens their mental game and has fueled their massive success. This podcast is brought to you by EQPI, or Equine Performance Identities, a personality profiling tool for horses that guides people to becoming the partner their horse actually needs. We all want our horses to be a happy and willing partner and to enjoy spending time with us. An EQPI profile gives you the information about your horse's individual needs and motivations so you can adapt the way that you're working with them to ensure just that. And should we decide that we're just not the best person for our horse or circumstances lead us to having to sell or lease, EQPI is a great tool for sharing what your horse's temperament is to ensure they do get a good match with their next person. Or maybe you love your horse so much that you want more of them and you decide that you want to breed. An EQPI profile provides invaluable information about temperament, so you can really make sure you're looking at the full picture when you're choosing the best stallion or mare for your horse. We're back with the penultimate episode, bringing out my bougie words today. That means second to last episode of the second season of Inside Equine Minds, and I have a really good one for you because I have Charlotte Jorst from Castel, Denmark on to talk with me about her horse, Zhaplin Langholt, who is super successful in his own right, and I'm excited to talk about him. And if you follow Charlotte on any social media platforms, she's always posting about her clones. She has 5 clones, 2 from Zhaplin and 3 from her stallion Nintendo. And if you are familiar with clones at all, you'll know a lot of people just name them sort of like the second, like Zhaplin 2. Charlotte took a bit of a different approach, which I very much appreciate. Zhaplin's clones are called Led Zhaplin and Stairway to Heaven, and Nintendo's clones are called Nintendo Switch, Nintendo 64, and Super Nintendo. So I just love that. And from a personality standpoint, just very interested to talk with Charlotte around how similar they are to the original horse, how similar they are to each other. So just a really, really interesting episode and very excited to dive in. First, a little bit about Zhaplin. If you're unfamiliar with him, he is 2013 Danish warmblood gelding. He is owned by Charlotte and her company, Castel Denmark. She acquired him in 2018 and imported him from Denmark, where in 2018 he won the Danish Warmblood Young Horse Championship as a 5-year-old. He actually went undefeated at championships. And then last year in 2024, he was the USDF year-end national champion in the Adult Amateur Grand Prix musical freestyle, which he loves. He was also number 3 in the nation for just the normal Adult Amateur Grand Prix. And this year he is doing really well with Charlotte. He actually, earlier this month in May, just won the CDI 3-star Grand Prix Freestyle at Terra Nova and was second in the Grand Prix. And now, a quick look at Zhaplin's EQPI personality profile before we talk to Charlotte. In order to get his profile, Charlotte took the online input survey, which is available on the EQPI website, which is www.equineperformanceidentities.com. It's a quick input survey. It takes about 10 minutes, but in order to get the profile, I need these inputs to determine where Zhaplin falls on the 4 spectrums of behavior that EQPI measures, which are independence, which is the horse's preference to control or comply, extroversion, which is the horse's preference to interact or isolate, stability, which is the horse's preference for predictability or variety, and lastly, the structure spectrum, which is the horse's preference for clarity or flexibility. Now, in addition to determining where a horse falls on each of these individual spectrums, in order to really get the nuance and individuality of each horse's profile, I then also look at how the spectrums relate to each other. So for the independence spectrum for Zhaplin, he is on the high side, and high independence horses prefer control, right? They want control of their environment, so therefore they tend to like to make their own decisions. They tend to be more autonomous in making those decisions, and high independence horses are usually a little bit more selfishly motivated rather than intrinsically wanting to please. For that second spectrum, the extroversion spectrum, Zhaplin is also on the high side, and high extroversion horses are usually more social, more curious, more playful. High extroversion horses also tend to emote externally, so it can be much easier to sort of read what they're feeling because they communicate that rather than sort of retreating internally and becoming more quiet. They tend to get more loud and animated with their expressions. For the stability spectrum, Zhaplin is considered situational. He's also actually situational for the structure spectrum. So in order to really understand how situational spectrums show up, that's where we really look at the relationship between the spectrum. So let's go ahead and dive into those. The most significant spectrum relationship for Zhaplin, meaning that these two spectrums are the farthest apart on his profile and therefore will have the most influence on him, is the relationship between his high independence and his situational stability. Even though his stability is situational, it is like very, very slightly on the low side. And so I had mentioned how high independence horses tend to like to make their own decisions. This will basically be amplified by the relationship with his situational stability because his independence is higher than his stability, which makes him a more proactive thinker. He's going to be thinking more ahead, maybe anticipating decisions, wanting to make his own decisions based on those anticipations instead of waiting to be told what to do. The second most influential relationship for Zhaplin is between his slightly high extroversion and his situational stability. And so he will be quick to connect, is what I say. So eager to meet new people or new horses. Horses with this relationship also tend to get bored more easily, especially because he also has that high independence where they like to be sort of mentally stimulated and mentally challenged. He will also then get bored easily. So wanting to mix things up with variety and keeping him stimulated with enrichment or just, not just sitting around all day, basically. Then we have the relationship between his high independence and his situational structure. So his independence is higher than his structure, so he will be more risk tolerant. He has the braveness from that high independence. And so if he is in an ambiguous situation, he will likely try to sort of figure things out for himself and rely on his own confidence to get him through. The last relationship I want to touch on for Zhaplin is an interesting one because it's actually between his two situational spectrums, his situational stability and his situational structure. When we look at them in detail, we see that his structure is actually higher than his stability. And when horses have this relationship, they tend to be very careful with rules. They tend to do better in a program, or at least in a program in which they know what to expect. They know what the rules are, and those rules aren't changing. And if they do, he will probably tell you because of his high extroversion being expressive and his high independence being more comfortable with conflict. If you want to see Zhaplin's profile in more detail, if you want to see the graphical representation of the profile, you can always see it on the Inside Equine Minds Patreon account. This is true for any of the featured horses on Inside Equine Minds. And of course, if you want a profile for your own horse, you can check out our website. All right. Now that we have a quick overview of Zhaplin's profile and are all on the same page, let's talk to Charlotte. Welcome, Charlotte. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time. I usually start by asking about your favorite and most challenging thing about Zhaplin's personality. So let's go ahead and start with the favorite question. So if you had to pick one thing from Zhaplin's personality that you appreciate the most, what would that be?
The thing is with him is that he's so expressive, that he And if one of the questions was, what's the biggest advantage for Zhaplin? And that is that he's so expressive and he loves to perform and he loves to be, and the trot cannot get big enough, for when he goes. And then the other sort of, what's the worst thing? And that's also the worst thing because, he's like so out there in the trot and you just want to make a half pass, from in that steep Grand Prix half pass. You don't want that big trot. So, that was very interesting. I love that question, how it was like, right, what's the best one and what's the worst one? And both are the
Your
same
favorite
issue.
thing and the most challenging. Yeah. I do find that to be the case on a lot of these interviews and this is a great point to make just about personality profiles in general, is that there's no good or bad personality, right? There's strengths and there's challenges to every aspect of the personality. And so it's always really interesting to see how when I ask, what's your favorite thing? And then your most challenging thing, they are often related to the same aspect of the horse's personality. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your favorite thing is that expressiveness. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that actually looks like? How does it actually show up for Zhaplin?
So a very, very good example is I'm going to a show this weekend, and I usually ride in the indoor arena. And then yesterday I took him out in the dressage field dressage arena, because I felt that, I should do that because I'm going to a show. I'm showing him this Friday. And immediately when he gets in there, he's like, the trot gets enormous and he's like the head, and he gets all, and then he can't even figure out where the legs should go because everything is so big. And I come across, I want to do some twos, and he can't even do the twos because now he's all tied up in a frenzy about how he wants to be so good. So I had to really sit with my legs completely loose and just ride him almost like in training level frame, and just kind of go around first for the longest time, or not the longest time, but the ride just become way longer than I wanted it to be because he was so tight. And then today it was fixed, and I took him back in the dressage arena. I could ride him 15 minutes, which is exactly what I wanted, because I don't want to ride them that much, when they go to the show. So that's perfect example of when I go to a show, he thinks he need to trot enormously and can, and everything has to be so big. And in the Grand Prix, it really doesn't have to.
Right. And when you took him out to the dressage arena and he got really big at home, had it been a while since he had been in the dressage arena? You said you normally ride him in the indoor.
Yeah, I usually ride him in the indoor. So it'd probably been 10 days that he had been out there. So he immediately thought that we were going to do ride through a test or do something that would make him, until he became extremely excited. And then he can't contain himself. He just gets so excited and so crazy, and then it kind of overtakes everything. So today I actually took him out and I played his music for him.
His freestyle.
And I did poles. I rode around in poles, and I just did the music and the poles, and I just kind of rode around and
just so that he wouldn't learn that the music means
means something.
Competition.
Or even that I pick up the reins.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful for him today. So you want all that expression, but then you also, when it's there, you don't really
controllable
want it.
expression. Yeah. And you mentioned that he gets really big and maybe a little bit tense. Does he also then want to go very forward, or is his expression just get bigger and bigger, but he kind of keeps the same pace?
Well, he kind of clicks off the connection at that point because he gets so tense that he can't even really figure anything out. So then you have to it's just really difficult because now you have no connection to the mouse. So now you're it's really difficult. But then you try to get the head a little up and push him a little forward and just kind of mitigate. But you just don't want him to get like that at all. That's really it. And I don't like it either. I think it's not good for him. I don't want him to be tense or anything. I mean, it breaks my heart kind of thing.
Yeah. So what do you do then to keep him from getting, obviously every once in a while it's going to happen, right?
It's gonna happen.
But what do you do? What strategies do you take like when you're at a show or you're going to be introducing him to this new situation that he hasn't been in a while? Are there certain steps that you do with him to try to keep that expressiveness and tension down?
I love that question because I've actually just had this. So last show I was at, he's usually so good, so I didn't ride under the lights or train under the lights at all. And then I ended up with a very difficult warm up because it kept on getting delayed and delayed and delayed. So I ended up warming up for an hour, and then I ended up being out in the freezing cold and really dark weather with rain. Um, and he lost it out there with the music and everything was in Ocala. So now I have to like redo it. So that's why I took him out yesterday and just kind of sat with my legs really loose and just kind of like almost like a rag doll up on him to ensure that, there's nothing here. I'm doing nothing, and just kind of rode around and did that. Went across the diagonal, like in figure eights. And then I kind of, by the end, were able to do some of the movements. And then when I took him back out today, I did the music, the poles, and now I'm doing all the movement, and he was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get to Ocala tomorrow, I am going to train him a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ride in the afternoon, and I'm just going to walk him under the lights. So he doesn't associate being out there under the lights with anything stressful.
Right. How is he normally under the lights?
Usually he's pretty good, but it was just in Ocala. He lost it. But he was also like many factors, but still, you just don't, I don't want ever the horse to be triggered in any way. I just don't like it.
Yeah, they don't like it either. So
no, it's awful.
I think it's all we can do, right? And that's one of the things that I'm really hoping for ECPI and doing the personality profiles is by understanding how personality influences what they need from us or how to prepare them for these scenarios. We can help to make sure that, if they are going to be exposed to triggers, that we're not trigger stacking to the point where they're going to explode or, reach the end of their rope.
You can make a mistake or something, but you don't want to ride that's triggered. That's just really no fun for anyone. So yeah. I think that will be very, very helpful with the personality tests too, so that you can learn a little bit about what might trigger them.
Right. And how to support them and like help bring their autonomic nervous system back into control, get rid of the fight or flight a bit.
Exactly. No, I think that's super, super helpful.
Yeah.
And it was also helpful to understand that he really likes routine. So I could probably become better at that at the horse shows. Try to emulate what he does at home a little bit more, which is hard because if you take them out,
it is
in the evening, then what do you do the next day? But maybe I'll have to really think that through.
Yeah. Well, with his high independence too, some of it can be a routine, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like physically exhausting, right? Like it could
be a walk.
Right. With the high independence, they like to be like kind of mentally stimulated. And with his high extroversion, they do tend to be more kind of curious. And so if all you're doing is just, walking him around or finding ways to give him like enrichment in the stall, like little puzzle games or something like that, even just using a hay net, something that just stimulates him mentally a bit could help sort of give an outlet for some of that tension that could be coming up.
That's a really good idea. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to really think about it and just try to figure out how to help him.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you try and
how it works. And then I can also do the figure eights because I know he really likes that. Get him out and maybe just do trot and canter in figure eights and really make him just relax and loving what he does.
Right. And now he's not high structure, he's situational structure, but because his stability is lower than his structure spectrum, that's where the routine orientedness comes in and being careful with rules. And so these horses, especially if they're high structure, get confidence from depth of expertise. He has a good amount of confidence already because he's high independence. But if there's a scenario in which he's in a new environment or he's starting to get stressed out, going back to things that he already knows how to do well, to be like, oh, I know, it sort of gives them like this, I don't know if it's a dopamine release or something that's just like, oh, I know that. I can do that.
I can do this. Yeah, I can do this.
Right.
And that might be even something before I go to my freestyle. I remember that with Nintendo, I always kind of just stopped and petted him and said, "You come on, we can do this." So maybe there's also I can just take another couple of seconds before he goes in to really make sure that he's calm, his mind is calm, and he understands that he can actually do this before I go in.
Yeah.
So I could also take a couple of seconds more there.
Just do something that he knows really well to give him that extra little boost before he goes in. Yeah.
Talk to him. You're such a good boy. I always tell him.
Does he like that?
He loves it. I always say, you're doing such a good job as a horse. They go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the high independence and the high extroversion. I mean, high extroversion horses are more social, but with the high independence, it is sort of like, I like the spotlight on me, or I like attention on my terms kind of thing. So I can see him maybe being in an environment where he has a spotlight on him or getting attention. He's like, yeah, I'm cool.
I'm cool. And then the trigger for him, I think in Ocala, was that he went across. I have first an extended trot, and I go across it, and another extended trot, and they were starting clapping, and he was like thinking he was all that, and then it just went. It just didn't go very well after that.
So when he gets tense or excited like that, does he try to take over, or does he look to you for guidance? What is that dynamic like?
He tries to take over. Yeah. So like instead of the twos, he does ones because he is so highly independent. So he thinks, oh, I know these lines. I'll just do this.
Right.
And then once he does that, then he gets upset because he understands that's not that, because they do know that they know the test. Then he kind of gets a little bit upset, and then then he goes really badly because now he's also upset with himself and the whole situation.
Yeah.
So I just have to be more mindful of helping him in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could definitely see how that could be a favorite thing as well as a challenging thing, and how that works at shows in particular. So you mentioned maybe one thing that you can work on is trying to make the show routine be more similar to the home routine. So let's dive into that home routine a bit. Is there anything in particular you do to accommodate Zhaplin's personality at home?
I think I think the horses just like the schedule. It's very regulated. I always come at the same time. I always greet them the same way with the carrots and the apples. And then when I get up on the mountain block, I give them a sugar and then I walk them quite a bit before. So I think all the horses kind of like that, the time that I spend with them. And I also always do poles for the back. And so I think I have a pretty good routine. All the horses seems like routine. They like that they have. Zhaplin cannot turn out because the turnouts we have at the place where I am is a little deep. But he gets a high hand walk before I ride and after I ride. And then he's coming back to Reno with me this summer, and I can't wait for him to turn out and be a little bit more of a horse there. So I do think that just the regular routine I have with the horses is just good for all of them, because it's pretty much the same every day.
Mm-hmm. What is he like if he's not able to get turnout?
He's fine. It doesn't seem to bother him.
Okay.
Yeah, but it bothers me.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm not counting the days till I can take them home, and also where they can see each other. And I think they're going to be so much happier.
Yeah. I mean, they are horses after all. It's tough. The two worlds they have to live in, of the performance world and then also being horses and having to adapt to our very human made environment for them. I can't imagine the stress it takes, but I'm totally with you as far as turnout and letting them hang out and see each other. Definitely, I think is good for any horse, whether they're a social horse or not.
It's got good for any person too. I mean, could you imagine like not having all that taken away from you? So I just can't wait to getting them home and just I just think that seeing each other must be so fun, you know?
Related to training tips or riding tips, what do you feel like if someone else had to ride Zhaplin, what tips would you give them for, making him feel his best?
I would definitely not. You can't push Zhaplin. He gets extremely nervous and triggered when pushed. So you really just have to like have long, soft legs and kind of let Zhaplin decide whether he wants to do things on his own or and kind of play it into him, because if you really start pushing him, then he gets really stubborn. That was one of the things that I said.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just about to ask. Like when you said he gets triggered when you push him, I was going to ask what does triggering look like? It sounds like you said stubborn. So does he?
Yeah. He just doesn't really want to do it, and then he just kind of fights it. And I know nothing worse than like fighting with the horses.
Yeah.
So you have to
you want them to like the job, right?
You want them to kind of like the job. So I try not to trigger. But it was helpful also with the figure eights, and really this personality test is going to help me a lot to not have avoid any kind of fighting, because I really dislike it. And I also feel then you feel guilty afterwards, and then you have to undo things that you might have done. I mean, it's like, it's awful. I just don't like it. So I avoid it like the plague.
Yeah. And in reality, there are going to be things that have to be done that they're not going to like, even if it's like getting a shot from a vet. But if you know that you're going to be pushing them with one thing, or doing something that they're not necessarily going to enjoy, by understanding what they do like and what they do enjoy, you can make sure that you sort of bookend the bad experience with some good ones, right? So it's not escalating.
I believe that you always have to train what they're best at. So they kind of leave their arena with a good feeling. And then you kind of don't train all the things that they can't figure out. Because I think by training good things and getting an opportunity to praise them, then they get more confidence, and then they get more motivated for doing all the things that's difficult for them.
Yeah. There was a study with people. It was actually based on marriage. But they did this study and they figured out there's a ratio for positive to negative experiences that can predict divorce. And it's 5-1. For every one bad experience, you have to have 5 good experiences to counteract it. So that I don't know exactly how that translates to horses, but every time I have maybe a bad interaction, or I know that an interaction is not going to be great, like if I have to give a vaccine or something, I always am thinking about that ratio. Like, have I been meeting that ratio? Do I need more positive experiences? And people talk a lot about the trust bank as well. Do I have enough deposits in the trust bank to withdraw in this instance? It's all fun, interesting things to think about. Yeah.
I have Zhaplin is very food oriented, so I have lots of sugar cubes that I take with me. So I do think I definitely meet that quota. I don't think I'm ever in the negative on that one, because I really don't do hardly anything that they don't like.
So I always ask my guests a nature versus nurture question, which is super interesting with you because of the clones. But before we get into the nature versus nurture, from a discipline standpoint, you mentioned always doing things, always wanting the horse to do something that they are good at and that they love. So what do you think it is about Zhaplin's personality that makes him such a great dressage horse?
I think he's willing. I mean, the fact that he wants to be so expressive and really wants it and loves to show and loves that people watches him. I think that is what makes him such a good dressage horse. And he's so beautiful, so black and beautiful. He looks like
black.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah. And what do you think it is about dressage that makes him like it?
That's a good question. I think Zhaplin, as long as there's sugar, and and he doesn't have, and he gets his breaks, and I think he'd love anything. And I think he would be anxious, and he is kind of an anxious horse. I think he would be more anxious if he was jumping. I think that would really freak him out.
Hmm.
At least there's a routine in dressage. He loves when I just sit with like loose legs and just take them off and just ride from the seat. He loves that. So, and there's definitely a lot of times in a dressage test where you can just do that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it is about the jumping that would make him nervous?
It would make just the quickness of it all. You have to turn and,
A little more
that's
chaotic.
really quick. It's more chaotic. I think he would have a heart attack.
So he likes the control of the dressage,
Yeah,
the intentionality.
the intentionality. I think all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what that ties into. Maybe his high independence. I mean, high independence horses do like to have more control and more autonomy. So I wonder if, knowing all of those movements and sort of what to expect every time you go into the arena maybe satisfies some of that control need from the high independence, and then maybe some of that rule orientedness also,
I think so. Yeah. I don't see him as a jumper. I think that would drive him nuts.
So before we started recording and we were talking about the profile, you had mentioned how you feel like a lot of your horses end up adapting to you. So I guess my follow-up question for that is, do you feel like their personalities are actually changing, or do you feel like, the way that you work with them, just they're just able to be more themselves and they get more comfortable, etc.?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Do they change? They do change. They do change. I have one called Express, the big chestnut that I have. And I don't know. He really had an owner. He was always kind of in a sales barn. And then he had an owner that gave him back because I don't know, they didn't like him. So, and he has definitely changed. He's completely a different horse today. He's way more settled and happy than he ever was. I'm not sure if they all change or if I don't know. I mean, I praise horses a lot, and I feel like my horses are in general happy. Our other people's horses is happy probably also, but I don't really know if mine are more happy or less happy than other people's horses. Happiness is a relative term, I think. But I try to do things with them that they like.
Yeah. And then that changes the behavior that you observe.
I think so. I think they, if they're anxious, they become less anxious. I also try to do trail rides with them. But a lot of things with horses just take a lot of time. And I have time. So I just give them a lot of time. A lot of times. Botticelli is a very anxious horse. He's 13, and I wish he had been at Grand Prix because he's so talented, but he just has one movement that he doesn't want to do. And so now I'm just going backwards and doing Pisha and George, and I won again to make sure that he's comfortable. And a lot of people don't have that luxury if they have an owner that's really anxious for them to go to Grand Prix, and then the horse ends up like completely anxious and
frazzled.
So I can go back and forth and do what's right pretty much all the time.
How do you think Zhaplin's personality changed since you've gotten him?
He has certainly become a lot less anxious and a lot more trusting. And I mean, in the beginning, he must have reared all the time because I would arrive at the showground and he would just like run in circles, like spin.
Yeah.
Because he must have been rearing, and then the person must have been putting him into a spin. So he would spin for like 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so scary. But he would never do things like that anymore. Now he's like riding proudly.
Yeah. What do you think triggered the spinning?
That he must have reared.
But he would do it because he was anxious, or he would do it because you weren't putting him into a spin.
No.
So why was he choosing
Maybe he was just used to spinning when he arrived at a show, I don't know. And he also tried to escape out of the dressage ring. With the little white fence. He was like, he tried to jump the fence out of there.
Maybe he does want to be a jumper then.
I don't know. But that has all gone away. Now he's just like, and he's super proud and happy, almost too much now because he gets so excited about everything.
Right. So, what did you have to do with him to stop the spinning?
I just arrived early and walked a lot around and just went from one arena to the next arena. And sometimes I also do with horses that are new to me. I just enter a small national class and then I just keep them at the showgrounds for like go over there for 3, 4 days. I did that with
Mm,
Express a lot because he was also very anxious on the showgrounds. And then I just walk around and
no big deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
no big deal. And they don't really show, or they show once or twice. And then they just kind of get to hang out. And then usually they become extremely relaxed. So again, it's time, it's just
Yeah.
a time thing. I have the luxury of providing a lot of time for them for them. I don't have anyone telling me when I should show them or what I should do. I can just do what's right for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really is a luxury. Unfortunately, I wish more people had that ability, but it is very nice to hear that you do and that you give that luxury back to your horses. I did see, and I was reading a Chronicle article. There was a picture of your groom leading you on Zhaplin. The caption, it said, "Yes, my groom leads me everywhere on him," or something along those lines.
That must have been back from that time when he was spinning.
When he was spinning.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So you had,
maybe. Yeah, no, now he just walks around. Totally cool. You can take him anywhere.
you mentioned the trail riding. What does he think about trails?
He loved trails now. That was one thing he hated when he got to me too. He hated the trail riding. It made him so insecure. I couldn't even
Mm,
kind of walk on a big outdoor arena, but now he's good with it. Now he likes it. I don't know.
yeah.
Does he love it? I don't know. I think he likes it without loving it.
He's like, it's something new, but also
Oh, it's
something new.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure he loves it. Some of them loves it, and he doesn't. He probably he's gotten used to it.
Yeah. He just does it because of the relationship that you have with him, or
Because sometimes I just go out, with another person, and we need 2 horses, and then he goes out. And I think it is so good for them to get out and do that.
yeah.
So I force it on him. That's something I force on hhim
Yeah.
because I have an opinion about it.
Do you ever take him out by himself on the trails?
I have done that, but not in a long time. I was actually just thinking about that. He will go out on his own though, but I won't. I don't know that I want to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I think it was the same Chronicle article that had said, related to why you decided to clone. It had quoted you as saying that you didn't want to ride something that you didn't know. Correct me if I'm misquoting any of this. I'm just so curious if it panned out the way that you thought it would, right? Do they have similar personalities? I'm just so curious.
They have extremely similar personality down to, for example, when it rains in Reno and when they were there, the Nintendo hates rain and would always go in his little they live outside. So they have a little
Mhm.
shed, but in general, they live outside. And I have a picture of the 3 clones standing underneath a shed. Zhaplin loves the mud. He loves being outside in the rain. There's nothing better. And his 2 little clones are outside, like rolling in the mud. They were covered in muck and dirt and everything. So I mean, they are so similar to their dad that it's absolutely crazy. When the clones were like about 2, they started really fighting because they're little stallions, right?
Mm.
So they fight and fight and fight because somebody needs to win. And they don't because they're all the same. And they also have the same mind. So they just struggle and struggle. And by the end, they were like laying on top of each other. They used all kinds of absurd tricks to win. And then nobody won. And then I had to separate them because they were like almost killing each other. It was crazy.
They're all gelded now.
No, they're all stallions still.
Oh, really?
But they
Still?
just don't spend time together in the same stall because that was too much. They couldn't. They will turn out together and they will do, but you have to keep an eye on them because if they start fighting, nobody wins. They'll just basically keep going until somebody is like dead, which is, I don't know which one that would be because they're all the same. No, so we just keep them separate. But I'll never forget. I saw them fight. I was like, oh my God, we got to separate these animals. This is crazy.
Yeah. Maybe once they mature a little bit too, like obviously as teenagers, quote unquote. Yeah. They're still learning how to deal with all the hormones.
I don't think you can put stallions together though, ever. You think?
I know people who have had stallions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if they've all been the same age, it may have been like a younger stallion with an older stallion.
Yeah.
So maybe you just need like a stallion babysitter who
I'm
can
not gonna get
just
us
like
that. I don't really know yet how it's going to pan out. We know that they're great on the saddle. They mosey around. They're really beautiful and they're very, very sweet. But I don't know if they're going to be like top dressage horses or anything. That was not really why I did it. I just did it because I think it could be, I know exactly, all that guilt that you always have with horses when you treat them wrong or you feel like you could have done something better, quicker, or
yeah, if only you knew what you
if
knew
only
now
you
then,
knew.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Then you could have saved them pain or, in the hoof. I mean, quarter cracks has been a big part of Nintendo's and Zaplin's life. And now I have a farrier that I trust and know. So now none of the clones are going to ever have a quarter crack. They're always going to be shoot crack. So there's just so many things that you feel for where you feel for them. You're, oh my God, I wish I'd known. And now you don't, you're over all that.
Now you get a do-over, right?
You got to do it. It's unbelievable. And it's so much fun, and you feel good about it. And you can do things that they love.
And so then with your experience with the clones and having, the original horses, in your opinion, do you think nature or nurture has more of an influence on a horse's behavior and personality?
I think for sure, I feel like you clone the memory and it's hardly contested this area, but I think they do because when I come to them, I go Nintendo or Zhaplin and they all come running to me. And they think they think they know me. And you can also load the clones in the trailer and you could, when they were 6 months, you can put them in a cross tie. So I feel like they are born with so many things, and I feel nature is much stronger than nurture. So I will look forward to seeing because these clones have a completely different upbringing than they had in Europe. And we'll see if they become the same, and I will bet you that they will.
It is so fascinating. I was looking into the cloning process and like what exactly is cloned, right? Like we know that obviously the DNA is cloned, but I think there's so much about DNA that we still don't know about, right? We don't really know where personality comes from. I wonder if like the age of the horse influences what's cloned as well, because let's assume that all the memories are cloned. Obviously, then in that instance, if you cloned the horse when it was 3 versus cloned the horse when it was 20, yeah,
completely different outcome.
Right. It's so fascinating. Yeah. So fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And I feel like the Nintendos are way more savvy than the Zhaplins. And Zhaplin was only 8 when he was cloned, and Nintendo was almost 20. So it feels like they're way more, the little Nintendos are way more savvy.
Are the Nintendos training faster?
It feels like that. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it feels like that. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that that's cut in stone yet because it's like margins. But my daughter actually ended up cloning her jumper, and that was cloned at 30. And that horse is completely knows everything. Will behave like it was 30, the clone. So we'll see. But everybody follows them, and I will be the answer for this. At least I'll shed some light on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the memory is cloned too, I'd be curious because you were talking about how like, oh, if only we knew what we knew now then, right? From if they had a negative experience with something as the original horse, would that then translate to the new? To the clone?
Yeah, would they get anxious about something because the original did?
Even if, yeah, right. Yeah. Even if like they've never experienced it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe sort of like the blueprints there, but maybe it's still like not really solidified. So maybe there's still an opportunity to mold it a bit. And obviously with training, you can mold any behavior really, but it's all very, very fascinating.
I think it's called phantom memory. It feels like that's what it is. It's not like maybe specific things, but it's just like an overall point of view like that this is okay.
An instinct maybe. Yeah.
That this is okay to be put in the cross tie. This is okay. Although the cross tie is very specific, arguably. That's a specific thing. Putting a trailer is a very specific thing. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I'll have to have you on again in like 3 years. Talk about this again and see how I feel.
And we can do the EQ on the clones then.
Yeah, it would be, you could probably do it now. It's super fascinating. I'd be so curious how similar they all are. Anyways, with so much more that we don't know about personality and about cloning, it's just very interesting. I was like, I have to have Charlotte on. Obviously, Zhaplin's super, super successful, but I was also really excited to talk with you about the cloning aspect because, it is just...
It's super cool. It's such a fun,
really cool.
It's been like one of the most interesting experiences I've ever done. It's been unbelievable to do this clone. Yeah. And it gets better and better all the time. And now you see all those little beauties on the saddle. And next year I'll take them to Wellington and start riding them.
Yeah, just show them around. Give them the time.
Maybe do the young horse classes with them. Would that be so fun?
Well, definitely. I follow all your accounts, so I will be eyes peeled on the screen waiting for updates. In their own time, right? In their own time. But
yeah.
If this conversation has inspired you to learn more about your own horse's individual needs and motivations, you can get an XBI profile at our website, which is www.equineperformanceidentities.com. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and thought the content was interesting, I would love if you could share it with anyone else who you think would feel the same. I'd also really appreciate if you could take a quick minute to give this podcast a rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes about the top horses in hunters, jumpers, equitation, dressage, eventing, reining, cutting, there's probably more that I'm forgetting, but make sure you click that follow button too. Well, thanks for listening to me, Caitlin Hendry, and I hope you tune in to the next episode of Inside Equine Minds.